Hello again, everyone. My name is Marissa Davis, and I'm founder and principal of Tallawah Consulting. We work with mission driven brands to help them maximize their impact by using purpose, innovation, and inclusion as a means to drive their core strategy forward. As part of what we do, again, we have a series I've called Tallawah Talks, where we feature change makers who, in many ways, embody what it means to be doing work at the intersection of impact and inclusion. And for our guest today, I am so excited to have Miko Underwood here to just speak about her experiences as a social entrepreneur at this intersection. And before we even get into it, I always like making sure that people have a bit more knowledge or sense of who the folks are that I'm speaking with. So just a little bit about Miko. She's the founder, designer of Oak and Acorn, Only for the Rebels, the first sustainable brand in Harlem, New York. And as a design director, she has developed and launched a myriad of multi-million-dollar denim-based lifestyle brands for the young contemporary, young men's, Missy, juniors, and children's wear markets. So Oak and Acorn, a little bit more about the brand itself. It's threads eco fabrics, historic storytelling, and social impact with innovative fashion. It recounts historical moments in American history throughout its product touch points and brand messaging, while raising awareness of organizations that support and empower impacted communities. A good fun fact about Oak and Acorn: 20% of the profits from its signature collection goes to support initiatives of We Got Us Now Incorporated, which is a national nonprofit organization built by, led, and about children and young adults impacted by parental incarceration. And Miko has been an active voice in the sustainable denim space. She's garnered a lot of support from a number of fashion organizations like Harlem's Fashion Row, Raise Fashion, and the CFDA, Council of Fashion Designers of America. And after a successful New York Fashion Week showing this past September, there's just more and more to come. So another key thing here, she's co-authored a number of articles on the history of denim that have been featured in a number of publications, including Essence, Fashionista, Refinery 29, Levi's, Patagonia, and Hadel's, to name a few. So I'm so happy that you've joined us, Miko, and I'm looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have today. So the way I usually like to start out is with the very first question here, which is, what is social entrepreneurship in your own words?
I never thought of myself as firstly, thank you for that introduction. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here with you. I never thought of myself as a social entrepreneur. I just wanted to do the right thing in my work. And so what that, to me, that I guess social entrepreneurship means being accountable for how you show up in your community, being able to make an impact, thinking about things broader than just your own personal investment or personal, receiving. And so for me, it was really important to look at how I showed up as a designer, as a business person, as a creative, and it's important for me to be able to give back in a really strengths-focused way. And so I guess that's what social entrepreneurship shows up for me like in my world.
And it sounds like, just with your own perspective on social entrepreneurship, it's in many ways a weaving of a number of the skills, not just skills, but the passions and interests that you have, which I'm sure didn't happen overnight, right? So, you speak to creative, you speak to just being in the fashion world overall. You speak to the issues that you care about. So I'm really curious to know how this journey, I mean, even though you don't necessarily, you haven't always described yourself as a social entrepreneur, at least the nature of the work that you do now rests within that space. How did this journey begin?
Well, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've been working as a designer for quite a long time. My career started in the fashion business back in 2003.
Okay.
And I started working for what was considered the first streetwear urban brands. I was a head designer of Baby Fat at the time, and went on to become design director for many myriads of brands. My whole entire career was about be as a design director.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so as a design director, your job is to, or creative director, your job is to be able to visualize and be able to tell a story. And I often had to tell stories that didn't feel honestly relatable. I would find spaces and ways that I could relate to it, you know, obviously through the art of creating and creating, letting the fabric speak to it and create that story. But personally, I never really related to a lot of what I was designing and or speaking about and creating the story for. So um, I guess the way that I got to this point in my career was that I had started a couple of different collections on my own that were really just extensions of myself. But I think it's also about a lot of personal work that you have to do. And so for me, it took some time in doing some personal work. It was it was a collection of things that happened in my life, including my sister starting the nonprofit organization We Got Us Now, which kind of put our personal story that we kept very private in the forefront. We Got Us Now, as you mentioned, is an organization for children who've been impacted by parental incarceration, and over 10 million children in the United States have been and have had this experience at some point in their lifetime. That's just the number that we know. But at the time when she um, started it, we didn't know that there were so many other people that were having that experience. So, in doing the work with that and recognizing that, this experience that I had was not just indigenous of my experience or my family's experience, but also experience of many people, that in itself was part of the work that I needed to do to be able to just even speak to that, because it's a very, personal experience to have a parent that's incarcerated. At the time when we were doing this work, people weren't sharing so much of their personal stories. I feel like today people are sharing a lot more than they have ever,
Mm-hmm.
and so these are private conversations that you would have with family and stuff like that. Outside of that, meditation, becoming a vegan, all of that uh, set me in a way where I felt like it gave me a higher consciousness around myself and really just into it, my own personal mind, body, soul, and how did I want to show up in the world. It made me more conscientious about everything, every step that I took as a maker, as a creator, and what did I want to give back? What do I feel like we need? Because honestly, as a designer, I was feeling like, do I need to be making clothes?
Right.
Like, is it important? Does that mean anything? And so with Oak and Acorn, it gave me an opportunity to tell a story that was, really authentic, that meant something, that resonated really deeply. So there was a lot of different things that happened to get me to that point. But if I were to say succinctly, I would say it was a lot of personal work that I had to do to get to the point where I am today with the brand and being able to tell an authentic story.
Gotcha. And I mean, certainly, I think a number of people can know or relate that personal work is no easy feat, is no easy journey, right? But so is the entrepreneurial journey itself is not an easy feat, right? So
Mm.
I'm curious to know how how has your personal journey informed your journey as an entrepreneur,
Wow.
and how yeah, how are you showing up then as a social entrepreneur because of
So
the journey?
yeah, so interestingly enough, I guess I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset, and that is um, because of my dad, who is incarcerated. My dad was the person that I looked up to the most as far as business and just exploring, and looking and being a visionary and exploring the world. And he was the person that basically gave me my Instagram handle, which was my first brand name, which is Miko Maiko,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is supposed to be Miko, my company. So
Oh,
he
okay,
was
got
always
it. Okay.
he was always the entrepreneur, and the person that I looked up to. So I always thought of myself as having my own business. When I
Mm-hmm.
went into the fashion business, only reason I went into the business of actually working for companies was because I wanted to learn the business of fashion. In 2007, I started my own company, consulting company, which I still have,
Mm-hmm.
which does like graphic design, and it allowed me to be able to work independently of a lot of fashion labels
Mm-hmm.
on my own terms rather than be just housed under their
Right.
business. It allowed me to work independently and work more as an independent contractor. So I was doing that before, independent contractors were the thing. A lot of companies want you to be in their house. And
Right. In-house.
so yeah, so for me, so having my own business has been something that I've always consistently done throughout my career, um, but this particular business is super special to me because of what it represents, and because of the social impact that's connected to it, not just from giving the portions to We Got Us Now,
Mm-hmm.
that percentage, but also really understanding what sustainability means. Sustainability for me is not just showing up as like, doing eco fabrics and thinking about climate. To me, it's beyond that. Sustainability is 360. It is that part, being able to be transparent and connect with artisans and being able to trace where my fabric comes from, to be able to work with eco fabrics. That's really important to me. But it's also my messaging, like what am I doing, how am I showing up? So I wanted to be able to have the brand to be able to tell an authentic story,
Right.
something that's connected to, deeply rooted to this true American story that's never been told. To me, that's being culturally responsible and culturally accountable, and to me that's also sustainable. And then giving back to an organization that's important to me, that's being sustainable, and that's also being, I guess, a social entrepreneur. But that to me, all of that is what sustainability looks like, and how I show up, in all those different ways throughout my business.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because so often when people talk about the term or use the word sustainability, it's limited to the environmental, eco friendly kind of space. So
Yeah.
I'm curious for you, why was it important to expand the thinking of looking at sustainability as beyond that?
Because I had worked for a lot of brands, and I saw, um, what sustainability could look like. And a lot of times it was the focus on fabric and climate, and which is really important, and also people saying like the customer doesn't care about that, we don't need to do all of that, you
Mm-hmm.
know but for me, it didn't feel right, to be a sustainable brand. um well, let me step back. When I first gone to a factory back in 2007, my first factory experience, like on the ground and being out in the country for this in Pakistan for 2.5 weeks, I saw how our product was made. And it was really incredible to me. But what I also saw was the amount of chemicals that were used on the products that we purchase and wear every day. And I thought that was indigenous to that country, because I was like, well, maybe they have, government issues. There's a lot of, instability in the country. Maybe that's just indigenous to Pakistan. But then when, 4 years later, I moved and lived overseas in China and worked all throughout China in some of the biggest well-known factories around the world, and saw that a lot of this practice was the same practice, and that was customary in making jeans. And so I always knew that if I made my own jean brand, I wanted to do it differently. I didn't want to use the chemicals, because I thought about how it impacted, the same way that we used chemicals, and how it impacted not only the water supply, but the people actually spraying it. They're wearing masks the way that we wear masks, today. Those things are not preventive of anything. They're not really helping you. And, honestly, the amount of chemicals that they're spraying, they should be wearing like a whole suit. And then you think about the fact that when we get the garments, we don't wash the garments before we put them on. We just put on it's new. We put on our new garments, and that our body is the biggest organ. Our skin is the biggest organ on our body. And so we're literally just, putting these chemicals directly onto our skin. And so it made me think about, like, what could I do? I couldn't move past that. And so to me, when I was thinking about starting a denim brand, I was like, it has to be sustainable. And I was crazy about, like, how can I do this? Like, it has to be done this way. And,
Right.
And so, and also reusing things that we already have here. That was really important to me. There's a lot of factories that have tons of fabric that have just sample yardage that never goes, and they end up just throwing it out, And so to me, it was like, there was so many different ways in which I could be a brand and still be smart in the way that I proceeded with my product development. And so that was really, really important to me. And then, this story, as I said in the beginning, being able to tell a story that was relatable, that felt like, I could see myself in it, and that other people can gain something from, can feel strengthened by, because, and I don't know if you want me to go into all that. I can tell you.
Well, one of the questions I have for you, which I think is a good segue into, I think, where it sounds like you might be going, is around what messy problem are you trying to solve? And I think part of that rests, it sounds like, within what kind of story are you trying to tell? So answer either one in the same. I feel like it really informs the other. So any thoughts?
Well, yeah. So the story of the Oak and Acorn story, when I started to work with my sister to help just in back office, to talk to support We Got Us Now. I was never in the forefront. It was kind of like just helping with creative and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, I had kind of like stepped away from the denim space. I was just kind of thinking, like, you know what, I don't feel like this is the time for me to be doing this work. It doesn't feel like it's anything is really positive happening. It just, let me just step back and reassess what's important to me. Right. And so at the time, I felt like that work was really important, to support her and help her, kind of get her business running, and this nonprofit. It's helping so many people. Like, let me just see what I can do in that way. And simultaneously, I was doing a lot of research, and I never stopped doing research about denim. As much as I tried to walk away from it, it kept bothering me. It kept like tapping me on the shoulder. So I'm researching, and I'm finding out that the first, I always knew the first pair of jeans were made in hemp. I knew that. But I soon later found out that the first garments that were considered denim dungarees or whatever. There's always a name for it. It's either dungarees, denim, jeans, whatever. But what we know today as jeans or denim were made specifically for the enslaved population to wear. So only, it was literally called Negro cloth, enslaved cloth. And I was like, wait, what?
Wow.
Wait a minute, what? So jeans were considered Negro cloth and unfit for anyone else to wear. So then it just took me on a journey of like, wait, I never hear this story. The story of denim, we always hear, you know, this white male, like coming from the West, you know, like, you know, cowboy, James Dean, that kind of, we always hear this very whitewashed story. It's a very narrow vision. It never shows, you know, Blackness or anything about a true American history, right? It wasn't so much about, to me, it wasn't so much about Blackness, but it was just like, how can we talk about this American story? And so when I heard slave, the first thing that I recognized, I was like, oh, this is, you know, it made me think about the connections of incarceration. And, you know, we learned through Ava DuVernay's 13th that, you know, when someone's incarcerated, the 13th Amendment is virtually says that, you know, they're basically a slave again. So I started to make the connections of the work that I was doing with, you know, around criminal justice reform and this, you know, enslavement. I started to make the connections, and then I just started to think about what's the uniform of this person. The uniform of the farmer was this overall coverall. The uniform of the enslaved person, the prison, it literally called prison blues, were this like coverall, this jumpsuit, this uniform. You know, what's the uniform of the worker, the enslaved, the farmer? This person is the same uniform, this laborer uniform, right? This jumpsuit. You think about the women and the men that worked, you know, the women that worked on the army yards, and they wore these jumpsuits. And so I just started thinking about all this stuff, and I was like, okay. And so there was definitely a journey. So to me, and then personally, there was a personal story that was happening, because when I really started to develop and move past the part of like stepping away, and I said, okay, I'm going to do this brand now. And I started to develop it and dig deeper and keep reading and researching. Simultaneously, there was a family member who was sending me stuff about my family genealogy. So on my mom's side is all Caribbean, is, you know, Jamaican and Panamanian roots, right? And so this side of my family was sending me all of this stuff. And so I'm learning about indigo, and I'm learning about Stamaka, you know, the original name of Jamaica. I'm learning my family's from Spanish Town, Jamaica, and learning all this stuff. But, you know, and that my great grandfather came on a boat from India and went to Jamaica. And so I'm learning about indigo being the hidden commodity of the slave trade, and learning that indigo plantations were made. They were taking people from India and Africa and making these indigo plantations around the globe and in all throughout the Caribbean and down through South and Central America and then into Americas. And I was like, this is literally like the trajectory of my family. This literally like how we got to the mixture of people, how this globalization of indigo, how it impacted the people. And so I was like, I wanted to share this. This information was blowing my mind. So I was like, I want to share this information. How can I tell this story? And so it started with denim. Didn't start with Levi's, Lee or Wrangler. Denim actually started on the Southern plantations in the American South. And how did it get there? And so I started to tell that story. And then why I'm giving back is the connection of that, in that in reality, you know, we still have, you know, the use of labor, the commoditization of labor, the commoditization of bodies of labor. It's a global commoditization. The indigo coming to the Americas was global commoditization of Black and brown bodies. That has not ended. That continues in our criminal justice system in America. And there's prison systems that actually farm our food and make
Mhm.
our clothes, that
Mhm.
they're not being paid, their families are not being benefiting from this,
Right.
just these systems. But then you also think about what's happening in China and Xinjiang, and things that are happening in India. There's still this commodization of labor, global, this use and loan on bodies for capitalism. And
Yeah.
so it was really important for me to be able to just, in a small way, tell this story, but it's been able to have such an incredible impact. The story has been shared over and over again. Globally, I've had, people view um, my runway presentation, everywhere from Pakistan to India to Italy to here in the United States. And I've been able to have global conversations. And even from America over there, it really touches people, not just people that look like us, but everyone is really touched by it, and they say, wow, I never knew that. I never knew that story. And it just brings us into awareness. And to me, that was really important to be able to do that, you know?
Absolutely. And I mean, I think the power of storytelling is significant, right? And some people tell that story through other forms of media, right? And that's been, I know, at least one of the ways in which you've been telling this story. But you're also telling this story through your brand, through fashion itself. So why did you feel like fashion was a medium through which you could tell this story?
Well, it's always been my medium,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the area that I've invested most of my time in.
Mm-hmm.
I love being an artist. I love being able to create product. And what I also recognized in this is, because I can tell the story all day long. I can
Yeah.
speak and be on many panels and probably get paid all kinds of money to do that, right? And continue to do research and write books, and that will happen, and it's
Yeah.
happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the other thing is that once people hear about it, they want to walk away with something
Mm-hmm.
physically, like a totem. A lot of ways that we carry totems, like when you hear a story, even museums, if you can think
Right.
about a museum and you go to see an exhibit, at the end of the exhibit, you want to walk away with it. Either you can go to the gift shop, or you take the fly or something they want to walk away with. And so what I recognized was that it was important for me to make this product, because I thought about my purpose in this planet, and like what was authentic to me. And every time I try to step away from this fashion space, it kept drawing me back. And I recognized that this is a gift that was been given to me. It's a God-given gift. And part of the work that I need to do is to be able to create these clothing and to be able to do this work in
Mm-hmm.
this way. And and I get to tell the stories by using really like artisan indigenous fabric, like the fabric behind me, which is made and woven and hand woven on looms out of Africa and hand dyed. And I get it direct, and I can put this in, and this helps and supports my local community. And stuff like that is really important to me. While people are excited about it, I get to tell this in my clothing. I get to put the history, and I get to write the story inside my clothing. Some of the pieces will have actually the stories written in them, so that people can be connected to it. There's stuff that's going to be on my website that connects to it. So to me, it was really important to just be able to share that history that I felt like we should have known. Growing up in America, we should have known this at a very, at an elementary level. This should be something that people should know growing up, about the contributions of brown and black people in this country.
Right.
Honestly, when you think about how we've gotten to be a superpower, it wasn't, we always hear about cotton, sugar, and rum, but we never hear about indigo. And that has so much to do with how the actual fashion industry started, and what actually indigo propelled them into the cotton industry, and growing cotton and supplying cotton. And that is what is the loan on black and brown bodies that propelled this country into a capitalist country. And so it was really important for me to be able to tell that history.
Yeah. And I mean, telling that history, telling that story through the medium of fashion, having tangible takeaways that people are able to hold with them based on the story that you've told, um, within a space that is not dominated by this kind of story or this angle on the story, is I'm sure has not always been easy. So I'm curious, what challenges have you faced, or what's been a hard lesson that you've learned that's helped you to continue to navigate this world and the work that you do?
Um, I honestly, I feel like in this moment, because of everything that we've experienced in this year, I'm lucky because I launched this brand officially. Um, did a soft launch last year, but the official launch was this year. And I feel like, I had the momentum of last year of speaking and talking about this information. And while it was heard, it wasn't as widely received as it's received right now. And so I feel like right now is the moment because of everything that we've experienced and seen in this country and around the globe, specifically around the movements that are happening in this moment. People are more aware, people are more awake, people want to hear, people want to share, people want to know how to do stuff. And so I feel like I've been getting an incredible amount of support. I think the hardest lesson for me, just as a as a creative person, first and foremost, is learning all the things of the business part. As an entrepreneur, especially we have some idea around business, but when you learn as a designer, like all the different parts of the business and learning and getting through that has been probably the biggest challenge that, I feel like a lot of times as designers, especially designers of color, we don't have the same amount of financial support, to get our ideas supported and to reach our maximum potential. I've been extremely lucky and blessed. I have a lot of people who have supported me, and have, because of the story and because of the work that I'm doing. I honestly feel like it's purposeful work. It's not a vanity brand. It's not about that for me. To me, it's a legacy brand. I see Oak and Acorn being around as long, if not longer than Levi's. I see myself on par. I see the brand on par with that because of the strong history that it's rooted in. And so to me, I want to continue to do work and do collaborations with organizations around the world, and especially in America, to support organizations that you know carry this history. But I feel like the hardest part is just being able to understand all the things. And I was speaking to a someone who is a huge venture capitalist the other day, and he said, I don't think that this area of business is racist. He said, I don't think it has anything to do with race. The issue is that Black people, a lot of young Black people who are coming into this work don't have the language. And so they're boxed out. And that's the thing, is that we need to be able to be in the spaces or be able to be mentored or taken into the spaces where we could have the language or given the tools. It's just like writing an email to a certain person. There's a certain presentation, there's a certain way that we do things. We've been trained to do that, right? And in our specific circles, like I know, like bringing someone into my space, in the fashion space, there's language that is connected, that is specifically to fashion, right? That is the language of that culture. Just like there's language in your space, there's language in the banking space, but most of us aren't trained in that space, so you don't see that. I think that we need to be inspiring these younger people to have more skill sets, to learn different skills, to learn the language of business, so that we can further have economic empowerment. It's not so much about, I think the pathway that has been shown to most of us as brown and Black people is through the entertainment. That's the way that we gain access and we have power, and then we have economic power to do things. But there's nothing wrong with going directly into being a business person, to going into finance, to understanding accounting, to understanding, venture capitalism, to understanding real estate, where these are things, land ownership, understanding how to work with currencies around the globe. These are the things that give us access, and to have Black empowerment that we're looking for, right? But a lot of times that is not the goal. And so I think, the hardest part for me, as I was saying, is that just understanding, and thank God I have a long legacy of work. I've worked really hard, and I have really solid relationships, because what I learned growing up was work ethic was everything.
Yeah.
And so I've always showed up in the right way, so that I can call on these people and heads of companies and say, hey, I'm really trying to figure this out. What can you help me? I don't know what this is. I don't understand this. And they're like, look, let me put you in touch with this. This is how you do. Or they'll just literally sit on the phone and walk me through it.
Yeah.
And all of that is of value. And I think it's important that we continue to mentor. So to me, in this moment, I'm looking to reach back, um, as this business continues to take off, my goal is to reach back to the young denim designers. I want to see other denim designers come up and be able to, guide them and have programs to help them as well, through entrepreneurship and mentorship and that kind of stuff. So that's my vision for
Yeah,
Oaks and Acorn going forward.
a bold vision, but a vision that I think is achievable nonetheless. As you're saying, with just the sheer hard work and exposure and resources, that you were just speaking to. It makes me think of, saying in Jamaica, which is, if you walk good, you know it's have to run, which is really, you have to put in the work to get, the output that you wish for.
That's
But
right.
I would love to know, I think, based on just all of the hard work that you've put in to date over the course of your career, what's an accomplishment that you're really proud of?
Ooh. For this business, or just in general?
Yeah, so for this business, just as a social entrepreneur navigating this space, or even beyond.
Well, for this business, I would say, it's not easy starting a business, right? As I said, I started several before. I'm proud that I've been able to stick through it,
Mm-hmm,
and I think a lot of it is because it is authentically me.
mm-hmm,
If it feels more authentic, I'm not trying to do something or fit into something that doesn't feel like me.
mm-hmm.
Um, So I'm proud that I've been able to stick this one out. It's been really hard, but I'm proud of that. But I'm also proud of um, um, the distribution partners that we've garnered.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm proud of a lot of things. I mean, it's a lot to be proud of.
Let us
It's been an exciting moment, huh? What'd
Yeah,
you say?
no, I was saying, give us one of those
Yeah, okay.
exciting. This is
One of the most exciting things. Okay, so first, I think the first thing was when the CFDA was saying, we've chosen you to feature you as one of our main emerging designers on the New York runway, on uh, Runway 360 on their platform. I was
Mhm,
like, what? This
mhm.
is crazy. So that was like, oh shit. So let me we we created the video, and we did that, and like we created the video montage of our presentation in 3 days, filmed it, produced it, finished it in 3 days, which was crazy. And in a pandemic when we can't have a lot of people in the room. So it was crazy.
Right.
So we did that, that was so exciting. But then I think the first moment was to see my name and the brand written in essence.
Hmm.
That was crazy. That was crazy for me. I was like, what? And
Like,
then most
wow, baby.
recently, yeah, that was huge. And then one of my favorite sustainable brands, I was just featured recently on their blog about greenwashing, and they interviewed me and cited me in a couple of things, Patagonia that was huge. And then a really designer that I admire, and I really think he's really incredible, his work. He recently just said that he admires me and admires the work that I'm doing. It's like, what? And this was Greg Loren, Ralph Lauren's nephew. So I was like, wow, this is crazy. So that was huge. He
Yeah.
mentioned me and Kirby,
Mhm.
Pyre Moss designer,
Okay.
in the same sentence. And I was like, what? Oh, this is why this is so crazy. So those have been some like exciting moments. But honestly, I feel like the thing that is most exciting to me is being able to have these conversations with people like you and other like people who have blogs and podcasts. And when I get to talk about, the journey and talk about the history, how empowered people feel afterwards, or people writing me and telling me, thank you so much for sharing, this was so powerful. um, that made me understand something about me as a Black person in America, or even the person who's not Black, and they're saying like, wow, I never knew, and I feel like there's so much that I don't know, thank you so much for sharing. That stuff really is like, it just, beyond everything, it touches my heart more than any of the other stuff. It's like, wow, that's so incredible. So I
Yeah.
would say that would be it.
And I mean, I think it all the more speaks to why having someone like you within this space is important, and how much that representation matters. So I think that this is a good way to wrap up our chat together. But before you go, my one final question I have is how can folks out there support your work and
Oh
continue
my
to
gosh.
follow you and your journey?
Yeah, well, the collection will be on our site and in stores and
Mhm,
Nordstrom and Shopbop in February and March. So
mhm,
next year, everything will start to drop, and I'm gonna have like special items in the
mhm.
beginning of the year,
Okay,
that are gonna be exclusive to Oak and Acorn. So you can go to oakandacornbrand.com. You
okay,
can follow me on my social media, Miko Maiko, or you can follow my brand and follow my brand, I should say, Oak and Acorn Official. You
okay.
can find that on my social media. But also, there's some other work that I'm doing with this part of the brand. It's an initiative to inspire education. It's called the Denim Collective.
Okay.
And it really is like, I'm just trying to find out what other young denim designers are out there, denim designers that feel like they don't have a voice. This is a space for to be able to um, create a community, because I have a lot of contacts and a lot of resources, and I want to be able to eventually share and help other people to be able to do the things that they want to do in the fashion space around denim. And
Mm,
so right now it's an educational resource. It's a hub to find out history. But going forward, we have plans for 2021 to be able to do some other things to help other designers in the space and really uplift Black and Brown designers in the denim space, because we're unseen. It's a
mhm.
niche community. So
No, and I think it's. I certainly look forward to continuing to following you on your journey as you not only work to advance just the tell the story of in many ways the untold story of denim in America, and kind of combining the importance of sustainability and sustainable practices through that, but also elevating the voices of other designers of color, Black and Brown designers doing the important work. So I really appreciate again, Miko, you taking the time out to chat with me today. And
thank you.
I can't wait for others to not only see you and hear from you, but just continue to support you on your journey.
Oh, well, thank you for giving me the space and opening up your platform to me. That really means a lot.
No problem at all.